That looks like a Travis.
Hi, Travis.
I am in finally. That's the first time I've logged into my computer since they upgraded it, and that was a chore, but I'm in.
Okay, nice to see you.
I am on shift if you haven't figured out yet, so who knows if I will be here the whole time.
Okay. Yes. Think we're good?
Yep. Want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag, United States of America.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are no people here for public input?
There are no people here for public input. I don't think you need to read it.
Okay, then we will pass on that. Going to the minutes of November.
At the top, it's nitpicky, just a space between the on November 4th first line.
All right. I think he's fine.
Anybody see anything needs to be corrected? If not, somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the meeting.
I'll second.
Minutes.
Devin, who seconded it? Okay, all those in favor?
I was not here.
Abstained? Okay, so we have, oh, we only have 4.
Can they
No, we
not?
have with Travis.
Oh, sorry. Travis, okay.
Travis, were you in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next is the October financial summary.
Okay, have you guys been able to pull that up to look at it?
Let me find what I did with this one.
Again, I think every month it's been nicely sort of on track. We don't have any unexpected expenditures. And it basically sort of flows nicely with the remaining amounts of the school year.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Fund balance, it says what was appropriated, what was received, and then it's 0. Have we used it all? Or no, does that just mean we haven't used any?
Oh, it's to be collected. So we don't have any to collect because we actually have, right, we had a fund balance of 1.6 and we have that fund balance of 1.6, so there's no extra out there.
But should it say 100% is remaining?
Well,
No, I think it's the balance to be collected and the percent to be collected, I think.
right, so we have nothing to collect. That's what the 0% is.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? You might have to answer.
Okay, accept this.
No, this is really just an update for you guys, yep.
Okay, we're going to policy second reading.
These are just hard copies if you need them.
These will go in our binders if we get that.
Right.
Thank you.
These were the 4 policies that we looked at when we were discussing public input. And so we looked at them as a group of 4. And we had an initial meeting with the policy committee, and then, so we made some initial changes. Then we met again last week, and it was Lynn and I met to kind of just go through the final parts of them. So as of right now, there aren't any changes for the first one, BBA, which is school board powers and responsibilities, that remains as is.
So this is not the actual policy, this is just where changes were or were not made.
This is the actual policy, itself.
Oh, okay.
And we do put revised November 18th, just because we're reading it again, and we're reinforcing that this is the policy we want to continue. And, board member code of ethics, if you look at page 2 of that, there's a strikeout on Q. So that's the change that is being proposed. And I can talk a little
I was
bit.
gonna say, why would
Sure.
taken out?
So, I think at that, when Lynn and I were discussing it, she felt like once we get into the board, we're representing the board and our students and not just a particular town, so she felt that. But again, this is up for, this is a proposal, so you can keep it as is, or make this change. And then, so I'll just go through the changes and then we can talk. So then, the next policy, public participation at board meetings. We added B, public input must be expressed politely and respectfully, focused on issues and not personalized. Sources may be required for numerical and other claims. So that was the change, but then it changed all the lettering of the other areas.
Is it in here, the amount of minutes and all that stuff, because you went to 21 minutes?
We did D, we put 3 minutes.
Because
We did
remember,
not
we
stipulate,
changed
right.
from 15 to 21.
Right. I'm just trying to see where.
So what, like, it's nice that we say this, but how do you, like, how do you implement this? How do you, because this is not like, we can make a policy for others, but it's clear that, like, we don't necessarily have any way to enforce it.
Well, I-
Nancy can hit her gavel all she wants, but
Like, if
like,
somebody's up there and it's totally out of control,
Yeah, right.
and it's not, just telling them to sit down and control.
Right.
Yeah. What are you gonna do unless you have police here?
Right.
Right?
so that's my
I don't
question,
know.
is like, I still think it's important to have this, but I don't really know, it's not an enforceable thing, it's not like,
Right,
What
not
we're gonna-
necessarily in the moment unless we anticipate and then have a police officer here, but there are certain, we can certainly look at after the fact if that person is hostile when they come in, not having them be present for the meetings.
I think that it's important to have a policy in place. The enforcement part of it is hard, but at least when we're trying to enforce something, we say we're enforcing the policy, la la la. And you guys need to, like, if we don't have a policy, then what are we doing? Like, what are we basing our decisions on?
civility.
Well, I understand. Right, respectfulness,
Yeah.
unity, right.
We should put that in a little thing we write, and say before.
So I know we talked about the first round being 21 minutes, I'm just trying to see where we could add that. If we still want to add that.
I was reading, what did you say? Sorry.
No, I just said, like, we had talked about like the 3 minutes, 7, if we have a large group, 7, 7 opportunities for public input, so that puts it at 21 minutes.
Yeah.
So where to add that in
Maybe
here?
on D at the end, something like, first public input session will be 21 minutes. And maybe followed by a second one at the end, if deemed necessary, something like that.
Right.
Instead of deemed necessary, maybe like if,
Or it's like,
If someone
chair,
even
what does it
disagreed.
say on my thing?
because what people deem necessary, you know what I mean?
Right. First public input will be up to 21 minutes.
Yeah, and then it also says, second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair.
Okay. All right, so we'll make that change. And the last one is KE, so it's public concerns and complaints. And we just did a strike through on the fourth section down, complaints should not be presented or accepted under public. And again, we can certainly,
But when they're coming here, they're usually commenting on something they don't like. And then you can reflect that, you call that complaint, I guess. Well, that's why they come.
What we probably should say is complaints about administration and staff should not be brought. I mean, that's what we're trying to not let them talk about in public session, right? Where they have to write about it.
Well, I think that's already, isn't that in the public participation one? Yeah, statements concerning subject matter. So that's already covered. Not be presented or accepted. It's a funny statement, like
Yeah.
it's hard to know what the intent of that whole line was.
I think it was just, I think the intent was that people shouldn't just come to the board meeting under public input and expect to have everything heard and then resolved, right? I think,
But see, the
I
first
wonder if we even just take that whole piece out.
Yeah, I feel like it's addressed in the paragraph
paragraph
before.
already says, you know,
And the board chair shall determine whether the complaint should be placed on the agenda. I would then take out that whole thing because it sort of goes against.
Yeah, I think that public input shouldn't be used for the complaint process. I think it needs to go through your typical protocol.
that would be the last step if they did not agree with the superintendent's
Right.
decision. Then that would be the last step, would be to the board meeting. If we put it on the agenda, if we agree to put it on.
But we're saying the public concerns and complaints are different than public input.
Yes, is exactly what we're saying, yeah. Which I think is why you left it in here, we should not be presenting these under public input. But maybe if we remove it altogether, it's sort of, I don't know if that's a plus or a minus, eliminating it altogether opens doors with.
I just think that, because we do have people that obviously sit and go through these policies.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so,
When they get to this and they say that they can't make any complaints, I think that could be taken.
okay, so I do think that we should keep that. I think that line, complaints should not be presented or accepted under public input. I think that does make sense, because then the line before, maybe that needs to be more clear, where if the complaint remains unresolved at the superintendent's level, the person making the complaint may request the matter be placed on the agenda, but do we need to say may request like ahead of the meeting? So like they don't show up at a meeting and request, like it's a little, I don't know.
Well, and it is at the next regular school board meeting, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I would say keep the changes as you made them.
I agree. I think you got to keep that in there. It protects us on both sides, I think.
I just forgot you were here
Several of us just had a heart attack. We're on call.
They do like it nice and light, can you?
yes,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so we want to call that as is, right? Complaints should not be presented or accepted under public input?
Yeah.
Should it just get attached to the paragraph at the top?
But look at the next paragraph. At all levels of the complaint process. That's all right, I mean,
Yeah, I think it works.
Can you just remind me that the first, there's no changes on the first, all the changes here are noted with the strike throughs.
Correct,
Okay,
And there was no change at all to the first one.
correct.
The very first one was fine, the second one was just a
Page two,
page two in the basket.
here, on page two.
Oh, yeah.
And that discussion just occurred around, again, making decisions for our students, not just based on town necessarily.
Well, but I think each town has unique characteristics of, like North Berwick's gonna have a severe crowding issue next year. And if you're from North, you're gonna wanna make sure that things are gonna go. I think we are speaking for all of the children, but, you also have to take into consideration your town's unique problems.
But I do think though that this board has always done a really good job of looking at it as a whole district perspective and supporting each town. So I think that's the overarching goal, is that you're representing the whole district. Yes, you're gonna speak to your town because they're gonna come knock on your door. But in general, I really feel like this board has done a good job of looking at the bigger picture. So, how are we feeling about these?
good. Are we voting to accept these changes at this stage, or do we do?
This is the second reading, so. we can
Okay,
vote on
and
it.
nothing else, was anything else added in writing that I didn't quite capture?
The only thing I have added is that 21 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah,
other than that.
yes. So BEDH, public participation at board meetings. D was the first public input session will be up to 21 minutes. That's at the end of D.
So can I make a motion that we accept the changes to BCA and KE as amended? There's nothing for BEH, right?
But if we could approve those, then we can at least say we revisited it.
Okay. Okay, so.
Can we put them all together?
Yeah, okay, so I will make a motion that we accept the policy for BBA, BCA, BEDH, and KE.
As amended.
For those that are amended,
Yeah.
yes.
I'll second.
I'm gonna say as presented.
As presented,
The old ones and the new
Yep.
ones all are together.
as presented.
All those in favor?
Hold on, are we, KE, are we keeping that sentence in or are we taking it out?
We're keeping the change as it's presented.
So we're taking that sentence out.
No, we're just taking the edits out. The sentence is now gonna read, complaints should not be presented or accepted under public input. For KE, you said?
Yes, for KE.
Yep.
All I see is under public input, period.
Right.
No, oh, well,
You
it
don't
should,
have the beginning of the sentence, complaints should not be presented or accepted.
It's crossed out.
No,
oh,
complaints should not be presented or accepted under public input. That's the whole sentence now.
Okay,
I'll make sure that that's appropriately shown here.
oh yeah, that's
I
crossed.
say that's not what's shown on KE right now, so.
Are you on looking online?
Yeah.
Yep, attached through the agenda.
Yeah, we've got the paper copy, so it's, they're not, they don't, I guess.
Yeah, so it is different.
Okay.
I hate to jump in and do this, but I do think we need to say that public concerns and complaints and public participation is different somehow. I think we need to state that very clearly. Because as you said, Nancy, people come when they have complaints, they've got an issue. So somehow we need to delineate that.
Well, it says with complaints or concerns regarding any aspect of district or employer thereof.
So you know what's actually confusing about that is that the whole thing is called public concerns and complaints, when the whole point of this is that they're not public.
I think you leave this policy as is before any change is done, and that sentence just stays there. Because it does still allow them, if they want to come in and complain, it tells them the proper chain of command that they're supposed to follow. And then if we feel necessary, or the board chair feels necessary, they can add it to the agenda to the next meeting. I don't see that we need to make any changes to KE. And then in regards to as presented, we can't really do that for BEDH if we're going to change section D to add 21 minutes, etc. to D, because that's not what was presented.
Yeah, but Travis, I guess I would disagree, because the point that in KE is actually that it's inappropriate for a complaint of this nature to be brought in public input, like without, you wouldn't, it's not public input. It's a specific complaint about an issue.
Well, it is.
I mean,
they're saying, they stand and say, well, I really feel we should do masks, or somebody's, that's their public opinion.
True, I guess I thought this was more about, like, my child's IEP is not correct. Like, that's what it feels like this is more geared towards.
Oh, really?
Or I don't, I don't like my student's teacher or something like that, like.
Because it says.
But to me, it doesn't mean that this is public input, because the public input is BEDH, that's public participation at board meetings. This to me is a whole different, this is,
Concerns and complaints,
yes,
But
just
isn't
concerns
there
and
something,
complaints.
didn't we get something, I don't know if it's the school board association or the lawyer, where that we need to have in place a policy that deals with, that allows the public ways to.
Public input, right, which we do have.
And then this one addresses how to, if you have concerns, not necessarily public input concerns, but concerns, and the chain of command for the concerns.
Correct. And then it gives us the out that if they do come to our board meeting and do it under public input, then we can either tell them to follow the chain of command or put it on the agenda for the next meeting if we feel necessary, according to the way it's currently written.
So what would be an example of of something that would fall under the concerns and complaints? Because, obviously people bring forward complaints in public input, and that's fine. So what would be an example of something that would fall under this policy and not be considered public input?
One of the things that occurred for us 2 years ago, where we had a gentleman come in specifically about his son and a complaint against the administration for,
But that wouldn't be allowed under any of these.
right, it shouldn't be, right, it shouldn't
Right, so
be.
but I wonder.
Well, that's a concern and a complaint that we could definitely have dealt with.
At a lower level.
Less publicly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, so what's your, you asking?
Because it is true that a lot of people that come and give public input is about a complaint. It could be a policy, it could be whatever. And that's what the public input is for. So I'm just wondering how people would know how we would know what it falls under, like the public input or the public complaint, because the vast majority of public input is complaining,
And you don't
which is
know
fine.
until they start talking exactly.
yeah, and it's not, we're not gonna cut them off and say, actually, you need
Well, we
to
have.
go up the chain of command.
Right.
So I'm just trying to, it feels like the things that fall under the complaint are actually issues that would typically not be allowed anyway because they're more individual.
Right.
So,
But they may be complaining about policy.
right,
Or like they may be complaining about a decision the board made or whatever.
Right, and then I think the appropriate place is public input.
Right.
Even if it's a complaint. Because we're the ones that they need to speak to.
Because I know like when I get an email about, somebody saying, there's something going on, can I get on the agenda? It's like, well, you have to follow these steps and go to the principal, and have to go to the superintendent and so forth. Because a lot of people don't know what the proper chain of command is, if you want to use that.
That's true.
There've been a few instances where, like Sue said, talk to me personally.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, you're telling them that's the way to do it.
Well, right, because it's not a public issue, it's something that's private, it's typically about their own kiddos at some level, but you just wanna not have it be
Yeah.
in front of.
So,
everybody.
I mean, in that case, none of them should really make it to a board agenda.
Typically, no.
But
Typically, no.
we're saying that that is an option.
Yeah, and and in all honesty, we haven't had many situations that have reached a level of frustration, I guess, on the part of the person struggling, that they would get to this level. But it does happen, right?
I mean,
I think like the nut allergy.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that is actually the one thing that comes to
Yes.
mind, which did go through all the channels.
Yes.
And I feel like that was sort of the example I could think of.
Yeah.
Okay. So where does that leave us?
Yeah, where does that put us?
Yeah, do you want to keep this or do you want to change this one? KE.
I still think that the edit that is made to KE is appropriate.
I don't have anything to make a suggestion, but just listening to everybody's I don't know, I feel like we might not have it right if we have to talk so much about interpretations. I don't know how to fix it, but
I wish that there was some way to put in here, you have an individual complaint that affects your,
Well, that's what I think the title should be. I don't think it should be public complaints. I think it should be
Personal complaints.
not public
well, there
complaints.
should be a paragraph that says
fix it.
individual concerns about your
Yes.
son or daughter are not complaints, you need to follow the chain of command, or something like that. I don't know.
I think she's right with the title of it. It does kind of make you start thinking about that, like you said, just individual. If we have it more defined, then it doesn't need the questioning.
So it may not be the top, that we associated with the policy, but it may be parents, students, or other citizens.
I think the rest of the writing is good, though. It's just confusing to call it public concerns and then have the rest of it say you can't have a public concern.
So, I just, looked up a couple of other school districts really quickly. And it's a very boilerplate, complaint. And this particular one just calls it complaints. They don't go anywhere else. The complaint procedure is the first 3 paragraphs. They don't have the sentence about public input. And then they have the right to appeal, which is at all levels. And restrictions on employees. So it's the same exact policy, but they don't have that sentence about public input, and it's called complaints.
So, I mean, we could just call it concerns and complaints
Yeah.
and not individual or public, but just make it that and then change that one, keep your edit as it is, and I think the rest of it kind of works.
I think that's actually appropriate.
Makes it a whole lot clearer.
So you're gonna change what now?
We're gonna
Remove
take
the
out
word
public
public.
on the title
Right,
and do the change,
Concerns and complaints.
concerns and complaints.
and do the change on that paragraph. So it would read that sentence, complaints should not be presented or accepted under public input. Left at that.
What's this on line? Travis, did you hear all that? Are you good with that change?
I did. I still like it the way it currently reads.
But we're trying to discourage, we're saying that they should not bring it to the board at a board meeting for the first time. And the way it currently reads leaves that door open.
And the first paragraph really says, you do the lowest possible level, you go through
Yeah,
the chain,
yeah,
and it
that's
says,
right.
the only exceptions are complaints that concern school board actions or operations. Such complaints should be addressed to the board chair. So I think that spells out, most of it right there. But I think that's implied that it shouldn't be presented at a public meeting.
Yeah.
And it could,
I don't know. I hate to take the word public out because I can see some people construing that as, we don't want to hear from the public.
I don't know, but we
No,
have a
because
different policy. that
Anything public goes
is
into public input.
participation.
I mean, in this case, it should not be public, so that's correct, but it just is following the proper order.
So do have a policy just on public input.
Yeah, he's the one right before it.
Participate, PDA, is the one right before.
I agree with Elba on that sentence, I think it spells it out, it doesn't leave any confusion.
So we've got a public participation and then a different one that's just concerning complaints. Is that what you think? Travis, are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm still looking, trying to figure it out, but you can move forward.
Do we want to not pass this one and just do the other three? So while we hash some of the stuff up on this one.
Can we just shelve this till the end, move this decision to the end of the meeting and see if we have, how we feel about it then, and if not, then we can vote on the other ones?
Okay, we'll come back to this at the end of the meeting. All right, facilities and finance.
Okay, so we have Kevin, Michelle Henniston, and Mike. We're on remote, in case there were questions that come up.
Oh, I thought Mike was the blue out, but he's perfect.
So if there are questions as we go through this, so we will start by just saying, last week, there was a facilities and finance committee meeting. The primary goal of that committee meeting was to address the space issues in North Elementary School. And I want to preface this by saying that we would have these space issues if the school building were passed as well, because the need is great in North Berwick. They're up 30 students from last year. Their kindergarten is larger than it has been in a while. Mike is thinking that that could be a trend that continues in that, in the town with the kindergarten students moving ahead for next year. So when we met with the Facilities and Finance Committee, and so Nancy, Travis, Stephanie, you were there, right? Yes, I thought so.
Not me.
Well,
No, I was with the building.
that's right, thank you. So we talked about three options. The first one was the modulars, putting modulars in North Berwick. And what we did was, we sat down and sketched out some of the financial impact to that. And that's number one.
Only one ed tech for 8 classrooms?
Well, that's an additional impact to support.
Oh, so they're already with the ed
Yes,
tech.
Right, this is
an
actually,
additional.
this is a lot about actually movement between the buildings and that kind of stuff.
Do you have this document on email that you can send me so I can look at it as well, please?
Just send, yes, yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now.
Oh, is it somewhere else? Hold on.
I'm just gonna resend it to you, Trav, you should get it.
So Kevin has done a lot of legwork on this as far as teasing out the costs, the one-time costs as well as those recurring costs that we would have. So a modular rental is $6,000 per month, and that's for 2 double classrooms. And that's a 5-year commitment, and that gives us the best rate. So over the course of the year, it will be $72,000.
Crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
So then the other crazy amount of money is the sprinkling. Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit about that again? You do that very well, about the new regulations with sprinkling.
Yeah, basically the state fire marshal came up with a new code mandate as far as modular classrooms, anything over 1,000 square feet. It's now going to be sprinkled, and that went into effect in 2019. So basically to kind of give us what we need for classroom space, and talk with Mike, Audra, and Sue, obviously, kind of what I figured out is that we'd need 2 68 by 28 modulars, which would be able to fit 2 classrooms in, which puts us well over the 1,000 square foot for sprinkling. So that number there, I don't know who can see what for documents, I can't tell. But sprinkling them buildings, and that's just running a water line, basically to wherever we put the modulars. And that number is based off what we did at the Hussey School this past summer for the SRF project and the sprinkler system down there. So basically it's $125,000 just to run a water line to where we're going to put these modulars, which would be somewhere on the backside of the parking lot, either somewhere in the Ryan home or close to where the current cottages are. So that's a huge fee, and that went into effect in 2019. And I found that out when I was calling to get pricing on modulars. So that's where that number comes from. And real quickly, to heat them, they come with what they call air exchangers, each of them, but we have to heat them. So that's where the $16,000 comes from. That was through P. Gagnon in talking with them, just giving them the area of what we have for square footage for each modular. So that would be the cost for that. You'll see in there $75,000 CMP to run power. And again, that's just a high-end number. It could be lower than that. It could be that amount. It depends on what CMP says when they come down to kind of give you an idea. Okay, this is where you're going to put the modulars. This is what we can do for you for power. We might have to install a new transformer. So that's where that number comes from. Other than that, I mean, it's kind of it's a big expense. So those are all numbers that we just kind of rounded up in the last 2 weeks, and that's where we stand.
What's the timing on this?
Sorry, Denise, what?
Just what's the timing, what's our timing on needing to find a place for these kids, and what's the timing on, like, if we went with option 1, like, how long would that take?
The timing for the students would be next year.
Okay.
We need to do something for the September.
Okay.
And how soon do you have to order the individual?
Very
Module.
soon. Correct, Kevin, very soon on ordering the modulars.
I'm sorry, say that again.
If we were to go with this route, we would need to get the modulars right, we would need to reserve them right away and put a deposit on them.
Correct. And one thing I did forget is the site work expense. Again, it's talking with Mike A. over North Berwick and kind of figuring out we want to put them in the parking lot. Well, we're going to use a parking lot space. We're going to have no parking, big student drop off, staff parking, visitor parking, a nightmare. Do we talk to the Ryan home and can we lease property from them? Either way, we've got site work to do. So you're probably looking at an additional $50,000 to $70,000 cost in site work, because you just can't set them like on a lawn area. You have to put them on a nice flat gravel area or paved area. And I will tell you straight up, the parking lot is not an option at NB. because it's just gonna take up too much space. It's gonna be too congested with what we have there now. So the only option we would have would be talking with Ryan Home to see if they will be willing to lease us land over there to put them on.
And like CMP isn't even able to come out until April of this year, right?
Right. They're not going to come down until we have a fixed plan in place on what we want to do. Because when they come out, they're going to want to know, okay, this is exactly what we want to do. They're not going to try to sit there and give us different locations. They're going to want to know exactly where we want to put them, so they know exactly what they need to do, so they can give us an exact cost of what it's going to take.
And is it just the fifth grade we're gonna move out there? No matter what we do, we're just looking at the fifth grade.
Currently,
All
we're
of
just
them.
looking at
Mike, do you want to speak to that?
Yep, absolutely. So right now we actually have 3 4th grades and 1 5th grade in the cottages. And so if we were to get 4 additional cottages, we would be moving 5th. So all of 5th grade and all of 4th grade would be in cottages. And also most likely music and / band and chorus. There's a lot to go here. There's a huge space situation that's coming, and it's not going to stop next year. It's a wave, and it's only even next. So after next year, we're still going to be in this exact same conversation, where we will need, regardless of any of these 3 choices, we will need additional space the year after, and potentially the year after that.
And just going back up to the sprinkling to get the water line in, that is not for plumbing. So bathrooms would not be there.
So they're gonna have to go.
They're still
In and out of the building.
Right, or a little.
Right. That money is just to make the buildings code approved per state fire marshal guidelines.
That's crazy.
Just to clarify, we're talking, I think the paperwork shows 2, adding 2 double modulars. And I think Mike just said 4. I believe we were talking about 4 at the meeting as well. And what you guys all have are options that we're trying to discuss, different avenues that we can go down.
So when Kevin talked about the doubles, that's still 4 classrooms. Instead of 4 individuals, there's
Right.
not enough space on the property, right? Because of the way we have to do the ramps and everything.
Yeah, so it's two modulars with 4 classrooms in it.
Correct.
Okay.
This is very well laid out and very helpful. I feel like, based on what Mike just said, that what we need to be looking at is a 3-year plan,
Yes.
not necessarily a 1-year plan. And that may look different, so maybe a 3-year plan includes something at the Knowlton School next year and then whatever happens after that. But I feel like in order to make the best decision, that's what we need to be looking at, because it will impact the budget and it will impact moving kids.
Yes. So we just wanted to go through the second one with you as well, because there has been some consistent conversation in North Berwick about taking back Marybird Academy or MHA. So we wanted to just price this out for you as well. The space at MHA, how many students are there? 27 students are currently there. And so it would not be taking the whole building. It would be taking the classrooms downstairs. So you would be having some students upstairs, and then the 5th grade, the North Berwick 5th grade downstairs. So you're having the 5th graders with high schoolers in that space. And there would be some things that absolutely need to occur to that building to make it accessible for 5th graders. Primarily, some of the biggest pieces are the kitchen and the work that needs to be done in the kitchen area to even make it a satellite kitchen. There's a dishwasher that would need to be purchased, an oven, some warming trays, and then we have to add some clerical support. Currently, there's no clerical support in that building, and some part-time staff for school nutrition for breakfast and lunch coverage. So that again will come out to $150,000.
How do we handle the kitchen staff with those that are there now?
There is no kitchen staff. They actually have just delivered meals from the high school to the MHA students.
And that's feasible because there's only 27 kids there, right?
Much more, it's easily done. But I think with an extra 40 students, so that would be a little more difficult. And it would really it would require just the kitchen be brought back up to certification standards, and then they would still be a satellite site, and that the Northburg primary, or Northburg Elementary would cook for those, but then they'd have to bring it over and do all the prep and all that kind of stuff. Of the old days.
And then the last option that we discussed was moving the 5th grade from North Berwick to the Knowlton School for next year. And some of those fees are there. We have potential part-time staff for school nutrition. We would have some moving costs and relocation costs, but those would be handled in-house with our staff. And there would be some staff that may need to travel to get to the building to be able to support the student increase over there of 48 students. So at the end of the Facilities and Finance Committee, the recommendation for them was to go with moving the students to Knowlton School for next year, knowing that we need to do some work ahead, that it doesn't solve the problem long term, I guess is the point.
Do either 2 or 3 have any significant impact on transportation of the students, like busing issues or just?
3 would have some busing. I think I wrote it down on the scheduling, the transportation from North Berwick to Knowlton. So there are some considerations to deal with as far as that transport. Between North Berwick and the Herd MHA, not so much.
And they will have available rooms there. I mean, there's more coming.
Knowlton
Yeah,
has,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. And Michelle, do you want to talk about your classroom space?
Yeah, so we would combine some people that are currently in single spaces, doubling up some service providers. We can make 3 spaces. We have 1 science lab that could be converted back to a classroom. That would take some of Kevin's expertise to make that happen, but we did do that with 1 classroom already. So physically we can fit them. It certainly will affect things like lunches, and then we'll need to kind of think about what that will do for things like our special ed numbers and how will that impact our specialists. Will they be able to teach all the sections and things like that?
I mean, I don't know if this matters, but like if we did that, well, never mind. We'll ask it another time.
So one thing I just would like to say is that there is not one good option. We don't have, there's a cost to every single option that's on this list. And so, we can talk about that for a long time, but we really do have to establish a position where we are going to have a plan for at least a 3-year plan, like a board member just said, because this is going to be a significant challenge. And so, the 5th grade moving over to Knowlton School would alleviate 3 classroom spaces at North Berwick Elementary School. And really absolutely have to happen. We need 3 spaces, so that would accommodate that. But that 4th space that would the portables would accommodate for, that's not just a want. That is almost a need. This year we are about as bare bones. We have essentially classes being taught in hallways. We are at an absolute situation at North Berwick Elementary School, and I would just want to be super clear that moving 3 classrooms is going to keep us in that exact situation next year. And then again, the following year, we're either going to have classrooms that are in the, 22, 23 in second grade, first grade, or we're going to need another solution. So, like I said at the beginning, there is not one single solution that is going to be the one that puts a smiley on it and we're done. This is a hard decision because there is not a good solution.
And we have to make this decision by.
You don't need to make it tonight.
Good.
However,
Good.
however, it is the recommendation from the Facilities and Finance Committee. And if we wait a long time, we're not gonna be able to get modulars.
That piece of it needs to be done within the next.
That's, can I interrupt? That, you just hit it right on the head. That's the big part, is reserving them, because we have to start, let's just say we want to do the modulars, it's gonna be a while we're lining up site work. I mean, it's been a couple of years trying to finish our RF projects, only because materials and labor and help and contractors. So and we're 6 months away from possibly putting them in if we go that route. So it's like, we got to make a decision ASAP if you want to do the modulars, because you still have to figure out the best place. Like I said, is probably going to be on the Ryan home. You'll have to negotiate with them to find out if we can use their property or if they're willing to give us property. I don't know that. That's not my call. But I mean, all that's got to be determined. So the big thing is, if we're going to do modules next year, we have to go soon. We have to make a decision soon, because I've got a lot to line up in a short amount of time.
Well, because I'm wondering if you could do a combination. If you could put the fifth grade over to North and maybe just get one modular this year to put at North Berwick.
I mean, it seems like the majority of the cost isn't the actual, I mean, a big part of it is the actual modular, but like, you're still gonna have to run sprinkler lines, you're still gonna have to do site work.
And they may need another module next year. I don't know.
I think the third option is the best one for us, just because outside of the lower amount of cost, if we're looking at the 3-year thing, it solves it for right now, and then hopefully we could move forward with the new school plans again, and then see where things are going with that, because I hate the idea of spending all this money to do this with the modules, and then if we could finally get to that whole new school, we just spent all that money to get people out of hallways, but if we have somewhere else to put them temporarily, well, we can I give them a better school. I don't know, that's what I feel, because I really want them to get a new school.
I agree with you, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the amount of money that there would be absolutely zero return, like, we will never get back any return for running water lines for sprinklers, or,
But I think to Mike's point, we can do that. We can do number 3. You're gonna have to do something else again the year after.
yeah, can we maybe make a decision of 1 versus 2 and 3? Like not decide between 2 and 3 quite yet? Because it sounds like it's the modulars and that work that really needs to be decided on, but and I feel like the first one is the only one that really sort of that costs. We have an idea of what that will cost for the next 3 to 5 years. We've got a lease, you've got the one time versus, and then for the other 2, I just want to know, not so much cost wise, but like, if we move kids to the Knowlton school or to the downstairs in Mary Herd, like with our numbers that we're projecting, are they moving again in 2 years, or will that, could we house them in either option 2 or 3 with what we're projecting for the next 3 years? So it's less of a cost and more of a, are we gonna move things again?
And we won't know necessarily until we start to see the trends for that kindergarten. If kindergarten continues to
Come in at 60.
then it's definitely, and you're right, we won't necessarily know.
So
Did you
could we
say-
have a plan A and a plan B?
Well, that was my question. So you're proposing right now just looking at 1, and do we take 1 off the table? And then address 2 and 3 takes a little bit of time to address to it.
Yeah, I guess I would ask, is anybody on the board in favor of option one is really what we need to sort of, if anybody is leaning that direction, then we need to really talk about that. And if not, then we can refocus.
I don't know, I mean, it just seems to me like if you don't do it this year, you're gonna end up going there next year or the year after,
Going where?
to modular someplace.
I mean, I don't know, I feel like the voters just said, don't spend the money, and, you know, so if that's, you know, I think that the plan that we put forward was a large spend, but more responsible, more long-term. That's a lot of money to spend on something that's temporary.
I agree. I think that, well, I said in the finance facilities meeting that option 3 is our best option because it doesn't going to cost us a whole lot of money, as much as it is kind of a difficult one when it comes to the North Berk residents having to come to the Knowlton School. The Knowlton School is already set up for 5th grade. It is with their peers who they will eventually end up with at the next year in their 6th grade. And I hate the idea, like Denise said, of, you know, throwing money at a modular that is just going to disappear when we don't need it anymore. We're just kind of throwing money out the window when we have an option that can be done. Although it might be an inconvenience for some, it can be done at a minimal cost.
So when do we make a decision on it?
I think,
I feel because we've done this with people,
I think the number one discussion should happen, and you should either rule it in or rule it out. Because we need to move on the modulars, that route. So the other two, we can even discuss at the next meeting.
Right.
But I think you address number one first.
so what are people's feelings as far as modular? I mean, if we don't do this.
So for number one, like I could sort of eyeball this and say, you know, the first year costs are the 125 plus 16 plus 75. And then the ongoing is lease from the Ryan home, cost of the modulars. You know, so first year, we're looking at 400,000 maybe. And then after that, we're looking at
Like 130.
130. And we're tied into that for a 5-year lease, what was that lease?
Yeah.
5-year lease.
At this point, though, take that long, maybe longer than in school.
Yeah, well, that is one of the issues.
So you gotta think about that.
I missed what she said. Can somebody repeat it?
That, if you're looking at the 5-year lease that we're locked into, at this point, we're not gonna proceed with construction, it's gonna be several years before we can vote again, or whenever we can vote again, it's still gonna be, 2 or 3 years beyond that, so, you know, we definitely, 5 years is probably what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to just do a straw poll of who wants to consider one and who doesn't want to do number one, or? Patrick? Anybody have questions? Right, I see 3 thumbs down, 4.
I'll be number 4 on thumbs down.
Okay.
Well, I think the reality of it is that currently, since we're going into basically December here, you're gonna be looking at a 1-year solution right now.
Right.
So that would make sense that you'd be looking at these 2 options, 2 and 3. But understanding that it isn't out of the question that you may end up having to do something physically on the property in the future. So like, it's never gonna necessarily be off the table. But it could be off the table for a bit
This year.
while we kind of
And we could always go for number 3, and then if it looks like things aren't going well for the new school, then fall back on 2.
When did it get, kindergarten registrations?
Around April vacation, like right after or before April vacation. Mike, is that correct? Is that kind of your timeline for registration?
Yep, that is correct. We will send stuff out in March, and then we'll start seeing things, and we should be able to know fairly early what the numbers are. March, April area. That would make sense to me.
I mean, I will say that the Milton School has a solid history of adapting and bringing new grades in and doing it well, and it doesn't seem to matter what staff is in charge. Like it's, we've kind of gone down this road before with the Knowlton School, and as far as I know, it's always gone very smoothly. They've done a really good job turning labs into classrooms, dividing them, coming up with creative spaces. It's a good building, and it's, yeah.
So my question would be for Michelle is if we were to move these 3 classes from Northborough to the Knowlton School, what are you looking at for space in the future? Do you have any more, or does this maximize the Knowlton School?
I think we would be pretty full. I don't think we'd be anywhere near what North Berwick is looking at. We have had some luxury of space over the years. I guess what my thoughts around this really are that this is a multi-year plan. Like we don't want to just kind of think about this in terms of, people are moving over temporarily. In order to build a unified school, it would be nice if we were thinking of, long term.
That was good timing, Catherine.
Only you, Kevin.
Sorry.
So there was a conversation about waiting for more board members to be here. There was also conversation that the Facilities and Finance Committee is making a recommendation to you to go with number 3 for next year, so we can start that process of talking with staff and the community to.
I still would really like to see, I mean, I'm in favor of number 3. I'd still really like to see what that looks like in a 5-year plan. So those 5th graders go here, they're in 6th grade at the Knowlton School. What does that do to the middle school? What does that do? What's the trickle up?
Sure.
And I have a feeling you guys probably have already figured that out. But I think that would be helpful with sort of the approach, not just the money part of it, but like having that unification and just so we're not kind of revisiting it again next year, because if we move them over, we know exactly how, like, even if it doesn't grow, we know that there's however many kids those are, and here's how it's gonna go down. So I think that would be helpful.
We can do that for the next board meeting?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
So I guess that's, yes, look at 2 and 3.
Right.
That's pretty much.
So we're all set with no modulars.
But thank you for the amount of work that went into figuring that out. They need to file that away and.
I don't think it's going away. I think we're always gonna need to step back and look at that over time.
Okay, so that's the facilities, that's the major thing. Okay.
I still remember when the Huzzy School modulars were being developed or delivered, and the driver tried to come down my road.
Oh, yes, oh goodness.
It didn't work out too well.
No.
Okay, educational program.
So I just want to say to Michelle and Mike, thank you, and Kevin, you don't need to hang out. Thank you for your input and participation at Facilities and Finance. It's been a long day, I know, so I didn't want to hold you up.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a great night. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so a couple of things. We had our vaccination clinic at Noble Middle School yesterday, and we had a little over 50 students participate in that. We have our next one tomorrow in Lebanon at the Lebanon Elementary School. And then, so December 8th is our next one at Noble Middle School, and December 10th is the final one in Lebanon, at the Lebanon Elementary School. So we have students that are registering for that clinic that's happening. We wanted to just publicly thank our staff. We had about 2 staff from each elementary school at the clinic yesterday. York Hospital had said that it is really helpful when you have staff, when the students come in scared and nervous, even if they're with their parents. So it was really great to be able to have the representation that we had from our building, so we do appreciate that. And we will have Lebanon staff in the Lebanon one tomorrow. And the clinic went very smoothly, really well organized. Tables were set up, everybody moved through it very efficiently and effectively. I was actually on a meeting this morning for administrative certification, and one of the superintendents was talking about how they were running it during the school day and how some of the students were really scared without their parents. So we felt very lucky and happy that we had scheduled it after hours when parents could accompany their students. So that was good. We have our attendance for the last couple of weeks. We've had, so the range, we always go through the range. So the range was a low of 85% attendance, and then the high was 97%.
That's for students.
For students. What was the low? The low was 85. Okay. And for staff, the low was 85% in attendance, and the high was 94%. And I just want to spend a little time talking about our cases. We have had good feedback using the dashboard. It is being utilized. It is getting updated every single day when we have a case. Our head nurse, Amy Crichton, will go in and talk with Jen in the office, and we will update that. So I just want to give you an update. As of right now, we have addressed 120 positive cases.
Just
Since September. Last year, the full year, we dealt with 140 cases. So we did not get a break. Like, there was no 2 weeks before, 2 weeks in, and then, it happened like right away. So what we are finding is that Monday mornings seem to be a really busy time for our schools, our nurses and our administrators, because some of those tests that are done like on Thursday or Friday, those results are trickling in Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So we're finding, like, on Mondays, we've had 4 cases that we've had to trace at the high school. It takes an incredible amount of time. So this part of the conversation is really what we wanted to talk about with you, is talking about after Thanksgiving. And so we anticipate, based on the trend of Mondays, that the Monday after Thanksgiving, we're probably going to get a lot of information. And this is just a guess, like, based on the information that we have, this is our guess. So if there are a lot of things that we need to address, a lot of cases that we need to go through and trace for close contacts, there may be a time that a building may need to go remote for a day, while allowing our staff to be able to really make sure that they are contacting everybody that they need to contact if we have a high number of cases.
So are the Mondays busy? They're busy with staff because they're getting test results from families, or?
Right, or they're getting notified from the CDC.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's just we're getting a bunch on Mondays.
Is it at all schools, or is it primarily younger kids, or is it?
It's a real blend. Yeah, it's not just,
So have we thought about doing remote for those days after Thanksgiving
That's what I
like we
was
did last year?
well, we could do
I
that.
actually don't remember what we did last year, but something like that.
What we did last year was going into Thanksgiving, we had the Monday, Tuesday remote.
Okay,
After,
so I know a lot of schools are doing the remote afterwards, but that's in situations where they're required testing, so. I suppose we're not allowed to encourage people to get tested after Thanksgiving.
One of the superintendents just sent an email out to all of York County superintendents asking, if we are planning on going remote prior to or after Thanksgiving break. And right now, none of the York County schools are planning on a remote before or after break. Some of the schools are seeing a little uptick in their cases. We're kind of seeing a real steady amount of cases just kind of coming in. Even though York County's going up a little bit, we're steady. So we just wanted, we have talked about, do we take that Monday and Tuesday and really going remote, really allowing administrators and our nurses in our building to make sure we're contact tracing. And then we've talked about, okay, what if we just come in on Monday and look at Monday and see the volume and then make that decision about Tuesday. So and this is
Because
again
not
after.
only do you get test results, but people who've been away for Thanksgiving,
That's what I'm
and they're
thinking.
gonna show up at school on Monday and expose a whole bunch of other people.
Right, I feel like by Monday, they would have started to have symptoms maybe, or somebody else in the family might have, so. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of doing remote, but I would say if you're gonna do Monday, Tuesday, or like give it enough time, not just for the staffing, but like,
I don't think doing it before Thanksgiving would address.
I don't think that would
what
be-
we're gonna pick up
Right,
over the weekend.
and that's what we talked about too, that's not going to help us with our contact tracing.
It's another one of these things. You
Yes,
just
I know.
can't know.
I think we would like to err on the side of caution, like you said. We would probably see some symptoms coming in Sunday, Monday. We would like to be able to contact trace. It's taking in some cases, it's taking hours to make those calls. And, like there were 40 close contacts today that needed to be contacted at one school. And that just takes a lot of time. And then we want to, we're doing it right. We want to make sure that we are making contact with families and making sure everybody knows the process and the guidelines for close contacts. So,
are all grades set up to go remote?
all grades are set up to be able to go remote. The kindergarten, I would say, has the least experience with it. But that, if we notify tomorrow,
I was gonna say,
they have
to take their
time
stuff
to,
home.
right, they would have to take everything home on Tuesday, but all of the technology, educational technicians in the buildings have gone over students, like with the Google Classroom and what am I gonna use?
Seesaw.
Yeah, Seesaw, Google Classroom, and it would give teachers an opportunity to send home if they wanted to send home some books or other activities as well. So.
I think it's hard.
If you go remote, we're gonna have issues with having that count as a normal class day because of the lunch issues, correct?
Yep,
Oh my God.
so but we probably could, we're
So
out.
wait, no, there's a week.
We'll deal with that. And we'll get the food out if we need to, so that we can make it work.
Right.
Those are planned, it's
Right.
the
It's the
hardest
snow
ones
days.
are the snow days that are unplanned. Like, if we give Abby what she needs to know, we can get this taken care of. But it
We
is
have to
hard,
decide by Tuesday.
we would, yeah, we need to know, so that we
And
can
it
make
kind
it.
of like, we have to see what comes in on Monday, I would think. If you absolutely snowed on this Monday, I would say remote.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't see them being able to do contact trace, do all that stuff.
So are you asking us to give you an answer on going remote just for the Monday?
No, I think, it's really complex,
Yeah.
it's really complex because
I think
of the
that's a
remote.
decision you have.
Well, I guess my question is, what do you need,
Specific.
what do you need a decision, what do you need us to make a decision on? Is
I think
the-
this is more of an awareness thing, we want you
Okay.
to know that this is a good potential that we will be looking at this and going, we should go remote Monday and Tuesday after November. I mean,
I am just concerned
I mean,
about the whole lunch thing.
Yeah,
That's gonna be.
that's.
I mean, obviously, I would just say, let's make sure that we make a decision. I think we have we've made a mistake a couple of times of not giving people enough time.
Yeah.
So I would just say if we do make a decision, let's do it right away.
So it's almost like we don't wanna wait till next Monday.
I know.
We almost want to.
I wouldn't wait,
tomorrow.
yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that Amy there's several cases pending right now. So my sense is that it's just gonna be a steady stream till Monday. So
Maybe at our next board meeting, we should also have on the agenda to talk about Christmas and how we want to handle that.
If we go remote Monday and Tuesday after Thanksgiving, are we just pushing the problem to Wednesday, Thursday? Because are we going to know whether or not these people are possible exposures or stuff like that? Because they're not going to be in school on Monday and Tuesday, so they're
Yeah, but
not.
They would have to let you, like, just like if somebody who tested positive on a weekend, they would still let the nurse's office know.
Yeah,
Right?
but I guess what I'm trying to say is, are we just pushing the problem that we would have on a Monday? Are we pushing it now to Wednesday? Because that's the first day we would be back in school.
But they would have had symptoms by that time.
Yeah.
That they would have been.
Or
able to be
tested, or,
whatever.
yeah.
If the symptoms started on Monday,
And it makes it 2 more days where it's not contact with other kids.
Right.
So if somebody, yeah, I think it doesn't change whether or not people become infected, but it does, I think, significantly improve Amy's options for contact tracing.
Just reaching out to Bobby right now, actually.
I think you would have our support
Okay,
if you do it every Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday.
and it does make more sense to go Monday, Tuesday versus just.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
I think once everyone's set up for it, it's,
I mean, that kid food service over week.
I think there's some timeframes, like it can't be longer than it's a 5-day. So that's, we're gonna figure it out, we'll figure it out.
Well, I just want to pull my teeth out.
It's just,
It's
different.
so
It's not-
complicated.
It's complicated, but
It
it's
is.
less complicated than a snow day.
Yeah.
As far as.
Yeah.
really,
In terms of getting the meals out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other meeting?
Just, Cinderella's, going on right now, and it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the dress rehearsals right now. Friday, Saturday, our 7 p.m. starts.
Yeah.
And then a matinee on Sunday. Our winter athletics officially begin on the 22nd. Sue and I have been able to get to our school, to visit our schools,
Yay,
and our
that's so
students
fun.
are really excited to be in school, and kindergartners are very busy with their, all their work as far as their journaling and working on sounds and putting letters and words together. It's very, very good to see. That's been fun. Our student rep to the school board is Hyla Fitchett, and she is actually in Cinderella, so she is not here tonight. So she will be joining us at our next meeting. And as I think I mentioned last time we had a meeting, she's a junior. So hopefully she'll be able to continue for two cycles of this. And those are sort of updates.
Employment.
Sure, so last meeting, we accepted the resignation of the guidance counselor at North Berwick, and this time we are nominating Amy Fuller to that position. Amy Fuller has spent the last couple of years at North Berwick as an ed tech, but prior to that, she has done some social work through Big Brother and with Big Sister and Caring Way Home Care. So she's done some coordination, some social work. work. And so that is the nomination for the guidance counselor position.
So is she qualified as a guidance?
She's qualified as a social worker, so we can get a conditional certificate waiver, and she's finishing coursework for schools counseling. And it's nice that she's already been in the building as an educational technician and knows the routines and the students. So that's gonna be, yes, we do need to go on that. So we do need that motion.
I make a motion, we accept Amy Fuller as the guidance counselor. Or to fill the, I say it
You
right.
got it?
Okay.
I'll put it right in there.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Travis?
Yes.
That's 6-0, right?
Okay, and then we have a retirement, Sue Cannell from Milton School. And her retirement, she's looking to retire in December, right as we head into break. And I'm trying to think of how long she's been here. Her letter didn't have how long she was.
Oh,
She's been
that's a
here,
good question.
started in North Berwick. She moved over when it was 5-6 and stayed now that it's Milton. So she's currently at Milton School.
Let's say 16 to 18.
Yes, that's what I would say too.
So do we need to?
You need to make a motion to
Okay, so I
accept
can
the
make that
retirement.
Make a motion to discuss. Retirement, sorry. Retirement.
Have a second for that?
I'll second.
You're pointing at each other.
Go for it, you got it first.
Makes it funny.
All those in favor?
Yes.
All I had to do was look and he just spoke.
And our last one is a resignation, Heather Tyler, who's the North Noble High School guidance counselor. She's relocating. Her last day will be January 21st. So we do need that motion.
Somebody make that motion.
Go for it.
I move to accept the resignation.
Somebody to second it?
Second.
I was gonna second it. All those in favor? Travis?
Yes.
6-0.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Is that it?
Those are, yep.
I did hear back from Abby. She said, we can do this. We would have to just have pickup each day, which is what we did in the past. So we wouldn't send the bulk.
Oh, that's right.
That works fine. That's right. Okay. Good news.
Before saying something like that.
Do you need volunteers like that? How do you deliver? Do you have volunteers come in or?
Sure, if you want to. So basically, they set up stations that they'll do stuff out of Noble High School for the Berwick and North Berwick folks.
Mhm.
Well, they'll do North Berwick here at the high school, sometimes the middle school for the Berwick crew, and then out in Lebanon for the Lebanon crew. And they're happy to have people come and help.
I will check in my neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for other?
We have,
Okay, other.
you have one, Sue?
Which one?
We have the high school tomorrow.
Oh, you want to talk about that? Yes. Okay, so we have a demonstration tomorrow that has been student generated regarding basically raising awareness regarding sexual assault and other concerns around sexual harassment. Students at, I think there were 3 young ladies that sort of organized this and have worked with administration. Gonna go off tomorrow morning at 9:30. They have a moment of silence or reflection. They've got some talking points to have with anybody that's gonna be listening. And Mr. Dufort will also be speaking. And then it's a 15-minute window. And the students have been very forthright with their peers, asking them to be respectful, to not come out unless they're actually serious about this, that this isn't a way to get out of class, it's really a serious conversation that they want to start, and then ask them to return to class respectfully. So it should be, interesting, yeah, we definitely will have some media present.
Is it gonna be outside?
Yep, they're gonna do it right up front. I've been in touch with the Northbrook PD to try to, but we have heard that there are gonna be some, outside, like parents coming through, and we're going to ask that that this is a student demonstration and that they not really, and bring a lot of cars in, and, because if we're gonna have students outside, we want safety first. So the PD is gonna try to monitor the roads, like by 9:15, to just keep things safe, traffic free, basically is our goal. So we'll keep you updated on that. There's been, I don't know if you have seen or heard from the world, there's another sort of student concern that was brought forward, which is what triggered this a little bit. And we can't really talk about it publicly, so we'll fill you in as best we can as the things progress. But there's, the statement that went out, I think we shared a statement with you all, that is absolutely accurate. Everything that has ever been brought forward has been properly followed. I think that's kind of the whole thing. So I'm actually looking forward to tomorrow. I think it's really great that the kids are taking this on in a.
They got a good turnout.
Yeah.
And that are working really well with administration. So that's been a good thing.
Okay, any others?
Oh,
I just had a question about code of conduct.
Yeah, so code of conduct committee, thank you. Things are just kind of busy. So we're gonna send out, so Nancy, do you still want to be on the committee? Okay. Would anybody else like to join the code of conduct committee? So what we're gonna do is just kind of review the current code of conduct, which is, it's looking at behavioral issues and how we address them throughout the district. So there's consistency and that we follow through on the work that we do. Anybody else want to join in?
I'd love to, but I don't think I can.
If you need help, I'll join in.
Okay, all right, then we can do some of this remotely.
And you might
too, I
want to
think.
let Lynn know. For some reason, I feel like that's her.
Right.
Yeah, Lynn might be interested. So we'll send out, I would say honestly, it's gonna be, we'll set things in motion for early December to have one meeting, and then we'll be pushing it past the holidays after that.
Especially since administrators change.
Yeah,
We have a
exactly.
whole new kind of group.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. So I'll be sending something out on that. Hopefully everything will be good by mid-morning tomorrow, and I'll get information out in the afternoon. The other thing I just wanted to share, which we're gonna be doing a grand reopening of the Second Chance Closet, which is at Mary Bird Academy. Rebecca Manning has done a fabulous job. We did a lot of upgrades in the building itself. And so the downstairs, and I'll add some pictures to our notes, and then I'm gonna ask Audra to send it out in the newsletter. They are open for business. They are always looking for volunteers to help, but it looks like a professional clothing store now. Yeah, so they've done a great
Is there a
job.
range to what kind of donations they look for?
In terms of,
Like, is it just clothing or
it's,
all
clothing,
sizes, like?
everything in general. So what happens is on Monday evenings, when the food pantry is open, that's their busiest night. And they open up for the public to come in, and the folks from the food pantry really utilize it well. And we use it a lot for student support, like throughout the district, if we have families that are in need. The Ryan Home uses it for the kiddos that are there. There's also the folks at the Recovery Center downtown in Northburg. They also utilize it. We have Maplestone, the kiddos out at Maplestone, which is it's a school in Acton for students in other districts, because we have Mary Bird, we don't actually utilize them. But they send kiddos over quite a bit to get clothing. So
And it's Monday night that they're open?
Monday nights are when they're open to the public, yeah, and then we do by appointment, for anybody during school, we kind of make it work. So I meant to bring them, but, Rebecca had new cards made up, so they're just kind of cute and cool, and it's really a very cool,
Is it all ages, all?
all
Sizes.
ages, like babies right up through, and adult, and particularly men's clothing is scooped right up. Because there isn't, there's a lot of women who clean out their closets, but not as many men, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
So, yeah, and at this time of year, obviously, winter coats are being looked for, anything that we want.
Got so many things.
Yeah,
When I
it's
was
not,
away, so I'm
and
giving
then,
all this stuff away.
right, so whatever doesn't get processed through the store, we take to Savers. And Savers gives us donation, like they'll give us, cash for the things that are donated, so.
Okay.
It's all good, but I'll try to write that up into an article for the newsletter, because it's kind of cool. There's a lot going on. And the other part of what happened downstairs at Mary Herd is they renovated the food pantry, not the food pantry side, but the backpack program side. So that it just looks.
If
great.
we went to option 2, would all of that have to move?
It would impact things, for sure. Yeah, because the other thing that you need to, I guess, that I want people to understand about the Mary Herd piece is, although it's 27 students in a very, decent sized building, it doesn't feel like it's a vast area. Because the students that are involved they need a lot more space than a typical teenager. And when the area that we're thinking about, if we were to take that, the North Berwick Food Pantry has 2 rooms down on that end, and they've renovated those rooms with a walk-in freezer and a walk-in cooler. If we needed to, we could ask them to locate someplace else. I mean, that's doable. So that leaves 3 other rooms downstairs, and they're all being used as classroom space for Mary Herd. So we would be squeezing up onto the upper level. And I think it would impact the programming significantly. I know it would impact it significantly. So we just have to think about those things. And we can get you, one of the things that's always hard is we took Mary Herd from North Berwick to create the program that we did. And then, put everybody into K-5 at North Berwick Elementary School. And that is a sticking point for some folks in North Berwick. But we have really saved a lot of money by not having our students placed out in programs like Sweetser or Maplestone or all these other places. And I think the most important thing is we've kept our kids in our community. And they're actively engaged in our community, and they have jobs, and they're graduating, and they're doing things that they wouldn't necessarily be doing if they were out in outplacement, and that's just a reality. So, that's my speech.
Then we'll have more of that next time, when we talk about.
2 and 3 amble.
Yes, I am, sorry, that was a preamble to that, but, and of course, I have a little bit of a heart for it, so. Okay, I think that's everything on my end.
So I just realized that I suggested earlier that we kick the policy down to the end of the meeting, and I don't know if we want to, how we want to handle that.
It would be awesome if we could just finish this up.
Travis, I think you were the only one with kind of sticking points on the policy thing.
Yeah, that's fine. You guys can move forward if you'd like with those.
Well, that's the only sticking point that, of the last 2.
I think he felt that we should leave the whole sentence as it is currently.
On Katie.
With the strikeouts or not?
I think he wanted to leave it written as a complaint is presented under public input. The board may vote to include the issue on the following agenda.
I
So,
suggested just leaving it the way that it's currently written in KE, not making any changes to KE. But you guys can move forward with the way you would like it as well. It's fine.
So the other proposed change would be to take off public concerns in the title and just have it say
Just
concerns and complaints.
Yeah, so just remove the word public. I don't like disagreeing with Travis, but I do think that the proposed suggestions make it a more clear statement. And I don't think it takes anything away from it.
so are you talking
Sorry,
about the
Travis.
word public as well?
What's
In the
that?
title, are you talking about the word public in the title?
Right.
We take the public out, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that's my suggestion.
And then I think we just have to choose between the two, which is either we leave it as is without the strikeouts, or we leave it with the strikeouts. So complaints should not be presented or accepted under public input is one version. And then the other one is complaints and should not be presented or accepted. But
Yeah, see,
if
that
it is
doesn't-
presented under public input, the board may vote to include the issue on the following agenda.
Yeah, I think the edits as presented here
I think I would go with.
are clear.
It's kind of conflicting.
So do we go back to the fact that there wasn't already a motion on that?
I don't know that we had
Yeah, somebody.
stricken the word
Yeah.
public yet.
I was just trying
But we
to.
didn't have a second, I don't.
So
We
I,
did.
No, we didn't have a second. You made
No,
the
so-
motion.
yeah, I think we just went into
Oh, I
discussion.
thought
So
you just made the motion and all of a sudden.
I did too. And then we had discussion.
Well, I thought.
So now do we
So I don't know.
now are we just voting? Or do we need to make another motion?
I think if you,
So if you're gonna make changes to the last two, you can't say as presented. You have to make the changes
So I
to say
think,
as amended.
I don't think that we had taken out the word public yet when we did
no,
that.
so let's do amended.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion that we approve these policies as amended.
Okay, thank you. And so let's. Yep, let's vote. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll vote second.
okay, sorry, all those in favor?
Travis?
Hold on, I gotta switch back. Yep, yes.
Okay,
Okay. That's
thank you.
6-0. So we have no other public input, correct?
And then we have an executive session.
Oh, please adjourn.
Yes.
So somebody want a motion to adjourn first, and then we'll do this.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You can't make the motion to adjourn if we're gonna continue our meeting.
Sorry, I thought you just said,
Oh, I thought you had to adjourn first, sorry,
No, but we have to turn off our recording at this point.
true.
Right, as soon as,
And,
are we going in?
yep, and then you just say, there will be no more public information after this executive session.
That's right.
Just so the recording goes on.